The most unusual skill you possess.
Unusual skill?
Yes.
I sing
Outside the showers?
outside the showers and inside the showers.
Well, that's interesting. Welcome to another episode of Boss Lifestyle Club, where we dive deep into the fascinating world of accomplished individuals across various industries. I'm your host, Alan Mungai, and today's episode promises to be nothing short of extraordinary. Our guest is a trailblazer in traditional arts of East and Central Africa for well over 20 years now, doing businesses over the internet and a private gallery by appointment only, right?
True.
And that is if you happen to be in Kampala, Uganda. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and let's get started. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Mongai.
Well,
Yeah.
it's thanks for hosting me at your place.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome anytime.
All right. So what's your name?
My
What do
name,
they call you?
my name is Joe Nixon Ndyanabangi,
Yeah.
with very diverse origins.
Uh-huh.
Raised up by a Michiga, a Ugandan stepfather, and born by a Kikuyu mother.
Interesting.
And so there we are.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I really like your place. A lot of arts. It's
Thank
it's so
you.
alive
Thank you.
and so well thought out
Thank
and,
you.
and all that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
All right, Joe. So I welcome you officially to the Boss Lifestyle Club.
Thank you.
Before we dive deep into the professional side of things,
Mhm.
let's start with a fun icebreaker.
Mhm.
If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who
Mhm.
would it be and why?
With any historical figure, I think
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela.
Why is that?
Well, I think he kind of embodies the whole epitome of humanity,
Uh-huh.
um, and the whole idea of his resilience into achieving what he wanted for the people.
Uh-huh.
And I think he got that to a certain extent. It's not what it should be, but he was quite um, a figure that we shall never forget in our history.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I couldn't agree more. That guy.
But unfortunately, I can't have dinner with him now. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That's incredible. Now
yeah,
let's rewind a bit, explore your journey. What
yes.
is what inspired you to pursue a career as a dealer of tribal art,
Very,
African art?
very interesting question, Mongai.
Yeah.
I have to say that I was always looking at arts. Growing up, I grew up in interested with arts, but I'm not sure that I was really looking into the arts. I was very much more interested in more music and more drama and creative. But when I finished my A levels, I ended up working for Nat Gallery. That was possibly in 1997, and it so happened that two of my acquaintances or other people's acquaintances were opening up a Nat Gallery, and they asked me if I could actually join.
Yeah.
And so I joined the team, and I started about in 1998, and I started working the gallery, and I thought it was quite something interesting because it was a whole new dynamic of now not only looking at arts from a performance stage, you're now looking at visual arts that communicates a language in a different way from a visual perspective, and also from what people create with both their hands. And that to me was quite intriguing, and I had to start digging deep on what this all meant
Yeah.
in the bigger picture of the world.
How old were you back in the day?
I possibly was maybe about 24 years old.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so also in possibly in that kind of transitioning age where you possibly don't know what you want to do and where you should be going. So it was quite an interesting place for me to drop at the time.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not sure about that now, but at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are there any pivotal moments or mentors that played a significant
Oh
role in
yeah.
shaping your path at that time?
Isn't that very interesting that you asked that question? That just as you speak now, I think my very first boss, who was then, and I just had dinner with her in Vancouver about maybe 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
And it is very interesting that when I met her, because I have never been had the opportunity to see her because she was living in Africa by then. They used to live in Nairobi, they moved to Kampala, and then they moved to Ethiopia and then moved to. And I met her and I said to her, I think I've actually done a career for about 22 years. She said, Joe, I said, the last I hired you in the gallery 26 years ago.
Yeah.
So I actually never quite remembered the years, but she was an artist herself, and she's still a painter up to now. She's 76 years old. She's still a painter, and I just had the privilege of staying in her house
Yeah.
and meeting the husband and the family and meet them in the place that they have actually now called home,
Nice.
and they have retired. And that was quite an open moment because that was it was a time that there was not much of visual art spaces that were actually existing in the whole of East Africa, or they were very limited by then. And so she was quite an inspiration for the first 8 months, and just before she sold that gallery, and another owner took it up.
Well,
Who is, I would say, I also worked with her for about 15 years,
yeah.
and we've remained quite in contact, and we are still quite good comrades, I would say.
Yeah.
Yes.
So is this the Tulifanya Gallery?
That's the Tulifanya Gallery, yes.
Yeah, I
yes.
saw it somewhere written in your
Yeah. Oh, wow,
biography.
you've done a lot of research. So Tulifanya Gallery was
Yeah.
actually started by a lady. Her name was Beth Pedden, and then she was a painter herself. She was a very kind-hearted woman. And then 8 months they had to leave the country, and then it was sold to another lady who became a very dear friend to me. Her name is Maria Fischer, and we worked hand in hand for almost 12 years. She's also retired. She's now in Germany. And yeah, so that was quite a transition as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
So we often find that these kind of transitions, the road to success is paved with challenges.
Yeah.
Can you share a particular obstacle or setback you faced in your career and how you overcame it?
Well, I don't know. I think I wouldn't actually even say that I have actually maybe overcome all the obstacles. I think for me, every day is a learning day,
Yeah.
and I'm never gonna stop learning. I'm always open to learning, and so it doesn't matter. And especially with art, it's extremely very dynamic.
Uh-huh.
And even when you think you know everything, you realize you don't know everything.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting. So I wouldn't really say there's any obstacles, but I've had my own dramas and my own, just like any business and any other trade you get involved in. It's got its own challenges, and some of them are unforeseen, some of them are not yet spoken about, and to a large extent, um, is possibly, I think artists and art creators go through a very difficult time bringing their art into the spaces that they can make a decent livelihood with it.
Yeah.
Yes. A few of them have made out, but there's still thousands of them left out.
So a few of them have made out. There's like thousands of them who are left
still quite struggling because one, I don't think Africans in general don't appreciate art. And so the art market is predominantly over 99%. I can say that authoritatively, if not 99.8%, is left to the northern countries and museums who are actually collecting and supporting visual art and tribal arts. And so that becomes quite a challenge especially when you operate in a continent which has almost a billion people, or over a billion people, and possibly less than 20% of them. And then you have there's more numbers of people in the career than the buyers themselves. I think that's quite a challenge.
Yeah.
And so everybody who comes up to the top, they have to be accepted, or they have to be validated by the external forces. And so that's a real bottleneck. It's not like if you manufacture tea, everybody takes tea.
Yes.
With art, we have quite incredible artists and visual creators or covers and artists, but they have to, most of them, they are creating art that belongs to, that is mostly taken by Westerners. But I think we need to change that. We need to change the appreciation of art, that we can actually have Africans buying, and and some few have beginning in some few places, buying and collecting, and that will make a whole lot of a difference.
Speaking about that, could you blame that on the market and the awareness there is?
I think both. I think mostly the awareness. I think, but the awareness is not. I think the awareness, I wouldn't necessarily say is really about the market. I think people have the money, but they don't have the awareness to appreciate it,
Yeah.
or maybe they have not been taught in school to appreciate it. So I think there's quite a shift there, unless for those who have actually taught themselves to acquire the visual appeals to certain unique things, and certain visuals for their own consumption.
Speaking about this, it just keeps on have this interesting question. I'm gonna divert from this for and then we're gonna come back. So, when you talk about art, when people look at it, they just see it as a waste of money. Is there a way that it can be like an investment, a way to store your money or have it appreciate over time?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, I think anybody, there is nothing. If I knew what I know now, I could have possibly invested all of my money in art.
Yeah. What kind of art?
So it doesn't matter. It could be traditional arts, could have been visual arts, paintings and sculptures.
Yeah.
Um, Art is one of the most invaluable things you can ever have,
Uh-huh.
and so an art is priceless. Um, so people who are collecting good art, it's worth value.
How do you know how to collect a good art?
Now, that's where we come in now. If you want to collect good art, then you need to have a few people that you trust
Uh-huh.
in the mostly with the galleries, good galleries or good dealers that you really trust, and are sort of able to guide you with possibly what might be a good bet in terms of investing. But of course, when it comes really to buying art, I think mostly I keep on saying, and I will say this again, is that you first have to like it. You have to like what you're buying because you're gonna live with it.
Yeah.
And I think when people buy art, I think it's nice for people to buy art because they like it, and let the investment become a second option. So people should not look at the returns before enjoying and appreciating what they have.
All right.
But yeah,
I think I've been seeing a lot of art at my place, but only young people. But it doesn't look like the serious kind of thing because it's the kind of printed one, so it doesn't bring the essence of uniqueness and creativity. So when you talk about art and liking it, are there some grounds that set the bar, such as how unique it is, how is made, how valuable it is, and how hard it is to replace? Are there such standards?
yeah. First of all, back to just your comment of saying that there's people you've seen doing art and it doesn't look really good. I think art is art. We have to begin from there. That anybody who is creating something and has a passion for it, it means they have a soul that wants to create. Now, the most important thing is that they may not be creating what is good for the market, but what they need is nurturing and finding the right um, avenues that they can be nurtured to develop their talent.
Yeah.
And I believe everybody has a talent and everything can be nurtured and everything can become extremely progressive and they can actually become extremely successful artists in the future. Now, on the second question was,
What do you? What is the standard for like choosing art? Like,
yes, art is quite diverse in its own way.
mhm.
But for people, as you work with art, you kind of are sort of able to see how creative the artist has created and how they use their colors and how what the message they're portraying forward and their style. And so as artists develop, then their message is also developing much deeper. And so, and that also becomes a very good fundamental for what good art might be.
Wow.
Yes.
Well noted. Well noted.
Yeah.
I think I like the second answer better because, yeah, you talked about uniqueness. You know how what they're trying to express.
Yes.
That's the main thing.
As the artists are actually expressing themselves
Yeah.
and when they're bringing their messages forward, is you can see their identity forming. You can actually see certain traits of their own personality and identity. So they form a whole identity that embodies what they're actually trying to portray and what they're talking about. And you can find themselves in their art.
Can anyone become an artist?
I don't think so. I have been dealing in for 26 years. I'm not an artist myself. I've just been a dealer. So I'm not an artist. So I have a lot of respect for artists,
Uh-huh.
but I'm not an artist myself. I just look at what is good and
Yeah.
and that's what I do.
So, but not everybody can also become a dealer as well.
Well, um it takes quite a bit of time
Yeah.
because you have to train the eye into seeing, differentiating what is good and what's bad. A trained eye sees a little bit. A trained eye in art sees a bit more than that, than usual.
So as long as you got the passion and
As
you're
long as you
willing,
got the passion, you develop it. Takes a bit of time. There are
yeah,
some people who have actually grown with a very good eye for good things. I mean, literally, I mean, I keep on saying, when you walk on the streets, you see women dressed up, and you can actually see some women every day. They look extremely elegant. The way they put together their clothes and the way they put together their shoes, and they're just like art pieces themselves. They look incredibly smart, and other people just don't have it. And so art is possibly the same thing. Some people really have the eye for it, and some people need help with it, and some people, you know, don't have it at all.
yeah,
So, and not everyone can be an artist
as well as a dealer.
as well as a dealer.
All right,
Yeah.
point well taken.
Yeah.
So
But they could be. I mean, if you're not a dealer, you are appreciating. If you're not appreciating, you're painting. If you're not painting, you're dealing. If you're not dealing, and there is also people who don't want to see art at all. They're not interested. And that's also fine. It's also fine not to like any of that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So can you highlight one or two key milestones or projects you are particularly proud of? Like one specific art that you sold and you're really proud of?
I don't think I can really speak about that right now
Yeah.
because I've worked with very, very many people in different projects. And so I'm very proud of everything that they have done. And every art is unique in its own style. So it's not the success that comes with it, it's actually the art that was actually emboldering the whole project.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like all the different projects we've done, be it interior design, be it dealing, be it selling, be it whatever we've done. I like it every day.
How does that mold your personality?
Okay. I don't know whether it molds my personality, but gives you a little bit of a joy
Yeah.
to just, and when being surrounded by very beautiful things, it gives you a certain peace of mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that, what feeling comes to your head or your body when you see people taking art for granted?
I don't think anything comes into my mind. It's just people are different,
How do you
and
see business?
well, I don't think I really I think number one, I have to make it very clear that when you're an artist and when you're an art dealer, you must love it first of all.
Yeah.
If you do art or you start dealing in art just for the sake of money, I think you lose because art is it's a very patient profession. You could live for 3 years without making a penny, and so you really must love what you do. You must be very patient and being in art is beyond what we might look at as you made money or you never made money. It's beyond the the cashing moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of reason is you are an entrepreneur, but an entrepreneur in art is called a dealer.
Yes.
because you have to find your own means of living with or without, the
Yeah,
money.
yeah. If I was making money every day with art for the last 26 years, I should be a billionaire, but I'm
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you headed there.
I'm not sure I'm headed there. I'm not really. I've never thought about heading there, but I'm, doing what I need to do.
It depends on the billionaire which standards. USA standards, Ugandan standards, Kenyan standards.
Whatever standards of a billionaire, it
Yeah,
means something for wherever people are.
yeah,
So if you're a billionaire in Ugandan standards, if you're a billionaire in Kenyan standards, or you're a billionaire in Congolese standards, they're all billionaires.
yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, why did you choose East African, traditional art?
Yes, very interesting question. Yes, I've had that question many, many times. Very, very interesting. In 1998 and 2000, one of the biggest things that was happening in Kampala by then is that when there was quite a bit of war in the Congo and the 2000s, and there was quite a lot of immigrants who were actually coming through then when we were working in the gallery with all these sacks and bags of old artifacts. And there were a lot of dealers who were coming from Europe. They were coming from Belgium. They were coming from France. They were coming from the US. They were coming from London. And they were landing in Kampala because this was almost like an entry point for the different artifacts that were coming here. And they were spending staggering amounts of money on pieces of tribal art. $10,000 and $100,000 on one sculpture.
And that was
And that was
90.
like 20
Yeah,
years ago.
that's good.
That was a lot of money.
Absolutely.
And we had a section that was a tribal art, but we really never understood much of what was happening. And so I said to my gallery owner, I said, we need to learn a little bit more so that we can actually improve on what we're actually dealing in the tribal art. And we needed to do a little bit more. She was not quite interested with the tribal. She said, "Oh, this is all fake things, and I'm not really sure they're buying the old things and stuff." But I said, "No, I think I said, people wouldn't be flying from abroad if there's something not real." And I say, so I started to now dive in and to understand what is old and what is new, and that's a journey that takes almost 8 years to really crack it. When you are looking at art every day and you're still learning.
Yeah.
And we still make mistakes even 40 years down the road. Sometimes you can miss a bad piece and a good piece. And that's how I started dealing with the tribal arts, when I started to differentiate and I started to collect my first pieces. And this is the very interesting thing, that what actually happened was a good moment for me. In 2002, I bought one mask for $10 approximately. And there was a dealer who was visiting. I never knew the mask was old, but the guy, when I was choosing the 100 masks, he said to me, "Hey, I think you should actually keep this one. I know you want to build a collection." And I was only 26 years old. "I know you want to build a collection of art. Why don't you keep these two masks for yourself at home? You might find someone who would." And I could look at the mask and I could not really see the difference between the old and how the new it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, I kind of blindly trusted his opinion. I mean, this guy, God rest his. And about 6 months later, a friend of mine who actually just called me last week, he's actually based in New York. He's based in Manhattan and was a very big dealer. Kind of called me and he said, he came to my house and the mask I bought for $10 6 months ago, he bought it for $2,500.
Whoa.
I mean, that was 2,500%.
Yeah, yeah. That's way. That's.
But
Yeah.
and I was a little boy and I didn't have a car, so I bought my first car with one mask. So my $10 bought a car.
Wow. That's quite an investment.
Well, I'm not sure it was an investment. It was just a very intriguing journey for me.
Yeah.
Because now I realize, oh damn, my $10 made $2,500 in 6 months. And I didn't have to fight hard for it, but here it is. And now I have a car.
Yeah.
That's like
Congratulations.
20 years. So
Sorry.
that to me was a very interesting moment for me to really dive in and to continue understanding and to continue. And then I started traveling a couple of years later. Then I started traveling to London with my old headdress and started traveling to Paris and started going to New York and Chicago, and to look for alternative markets for me to sell what I needed. Yeah.
Wow, that is incredible. So, you know, what is some of those opportunities that you missed? Like, you know,
Back.
looking back, you say that even still today, you're learning and you miss some opportunities.
Yeah.
Which is one opportunity that you missed and you feel like, oh my goodness, that one has taught me a lot.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I think one time, I think I had someone who came in and from a business perspective,
Yeah.
and he was actually here, and he brought for me a very interesting sculpture of Sudan, and I really never understood the sculpture, and I tried to study a little bit into the books just to figure it out. And he wanted me to pay him the sculpture, just if I give the figures, if you don't mind me giving the figures.
Go ahead.
It was quite, possibly maybe something like $1,000 or something, and I never bought it because I didn't trust myself, or I didn't judge it right enough for me to take up the piece. But I knew it had something special, and in about 3 weeks, another dealer came and bought it for $25,000.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, but it's not really about the money for me. That I was really that sets me back about the piece. Not really about the money. It's much more to do with how much I needed to learn to understand more.
It's an
So-
expensive lesson.
Well, I'm not sure it was really an expensive lesson. It's just a challenging. You have to, you have to challenge yourself. It's nothing to say, oh, I should have done it. Yes, I should have done it. Yes, but the most important is that what is it that I missed,
Yeah.
and what am I learning from this, and how can I make it better next time for myself? How can I trust myself more?
It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about life work balance.
Mhm.
Balancing a successful career with your personal life.
Mhm.
Has it been demanding?
No. I think in my younger years, yes, it was. But now, I used to have 3 shops or 3 locations in Kampala at one moment, and we ended up closing all those locations, and we after almost 10 years, and that was kind of extremely exhausting because then the overheads and all these kind of things, and so we concentrated much more with online.
Yeah.
And I moved home and built up a gallery and put up the whole artifacts, and I wouldn't say it's been great, but we've had some great moments in the last 5 years. Um, um, it's much less. I have much more time in my hands. That I almost feel like, oh, I'm like craving. I need to do something now. But yeah, but we are getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
So back in the day when you had like a busy schedule,
Mm.
how did you used to maintain the work life and your personal life?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think sometimes when you're in your 30s and early 40s, it's a very strange moment. I think it's a very strange phase of life because nothing. Yeah, half the time you're money driven and you're success driven. So we don't really look at how much you need to balance your life and what you need to do. You are constantly in this mode of you need to go to the next level, you need to do the next level. But it's very interesting that being in gallery business for a very long time is that the clientele that you get, it's not really, doesn't get that busy. So you kind of have, most galleries close on Mondays. They're not open on Mondays, and they're not open sometimes on Sundays. And then also they open possibly maybe about 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So there's pretty much room to sort of work yourself up. even
Yeah.
though you're also always on the mod moving forward.
So, what increased the amount of time that you
Mhm.
have today? When you transitioned from owning the five locations,
Mhm.
to literally just having an online presence.
Yeah. There's one thing, I mean, with art, I have to say, it's not many people that trust themselves to actually buy their art. And so many people are not willing to spend especially thousands of dollars on art, which is actually in Africa. Africa becomes one of those continents that is alienated on the e-commerce website, the major portals of e-commerce. Africa is alienated, especially in the art world, in all the other. Um, um, I mean, people have not had time to think about it, but it's a blacklisted continent in terms um, of of business, but it's changing, especially in the art world. I won't talk about many other areas, but still, people who really want to spend money on art, they want to see it and they want to feel it, and so they, on the online part, yes, people are willing to spend a little bit of money, but they will not go beyond the ceiling of what they feel comfortable with. Because when you're spending a certain amount of money of art, you want to feel it and you want to touch it. So that becomes extremely very complex.
So that means if somebody wants to have the touch and the feel,
Mhm.
they have to schedule an appointment with you.
Yeah, they could schedule an appointment with me, especially if they're in Kampala. They could schedule an appointment with me and they can come to me here.
Yeah.
But if they are in other places of the world, I have always said if they're spending over $15,000, then I can actually go see them.
Wow, guys, you
Yeah,
had that.
yeah,
Yeah, this is where you need to be if you have that eye for art.
yeah.
I'm telling you, this is the next level to your art level because this guy will take it to the through the ropes.
Yeah.
All right, the next question now. Let's have some fun with the rapid fire round. I'll throw some quick question
Mhm.
or at you, and I want your gut reaction. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Favorite book or podcast?
Come again.
Favorite book or podcast?
My favorite book
Yes.
is right there, just next to you. I'm just reading it now after very many, many, many years of codependency with life.
Codependency with life.
Yeah,
All right. If you could switch careers for a day, what would you do?
I would shoot movies.
Interesting. The most unusual skill you possess.
Unusual skill?
Yes.
I sing.
Outside the showers?
Outside the showers and inside the showers.
Well, that's interesting. All right, shifting gears back to your expertise, what trends or developments in traditional African arts are you most excited about?
Well, there will be not the traditional arts. It's unfortunately is not one of those places that you can actually call it as a trendy business
Uh huh.
because the art that has been created, this art has been created for centuries ago, and so we have a very few unique tribes that we are creating different things, and those things are not being created anymore. So there's no trend to it, and so there might be a trend that that has been up for the last 30 years of creating reproductions that are actually put into the market for sale, but definitely for the original pieces of art, and the older artifacts, nothing changes because the styles were done from the 1800 and they continue to be done all the way into the late 19th century.
Speaking about the art that were created like 50, 100 years ago,
Mhm,
that comes from Africa.
mhm.
Is it true that some of these spoke about religion? Not exactly religion, but the beliefs of people at the
Yeah,
time.
the beliefs of the people, the incantations of the people, and literally, I mean, art and religion intertwined. It was much more to do with spirituality, people's beliefs and morals, and so art has been, it's possibly the oldest Bible that we ever had.
And we just don't look at it
Yeah,
as we
people don't
should.
look at it as we should. I think we look at it like from a demonic point. But the same people who told you that they're demonic are the same people who are spending $1 million on them.
Yeah.
So, it's quite a dicey subject. The same people who tell you it's scary, the same people, you pay money to go to the museums. So, people really, this is traditional art. This is our art. It was created by our ancestors, and we must possess it. We must own it. It tells a story about us and it speaks to us. And it's our culture. So it should be every government and every community's responsibility to conserve the art and to keep it for the people.
Do you think we're doing it enough?
Well, I don't think it's being done at all. Unfortunately, there's nothing not being done at all. But I think you've seen there's a very huge debate now going on in the whole world about repatriating all the artifacts that were stolen by the colonialists.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a debate that's going to be going on for a long time. I'm not sure it's something that I necessarily upheld that has to be done now, but I'm sure at some moment, we need to get some of that art back.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing we always told.
Yeah,
When the guys came, they gave us the
the
good
Bible.
work,
Yeah, they gave us the Bible and they took the art.
and they took the art, and
Yes.
then now we have to pay for it
Yes,
at somewhere,
and bring it
yeah,
back.
and bring it back.
Yeah,
And it's not just us, like the entire continent.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's neither here or there. But but we'll see how that works out eventually.
All right, all
Yeah,
right. So
yeah.
I think I'd chosen a few questions that viewers would have in mind,
Mhm.
and so here's the first one. So you've chosen to specialize in the traditional arts of East.
Yes, I've been specializing with the traditional arts of East Africa.
Uh-huh.
Mostly, I do Congo, Sudan, Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, and whatever. I'm open to other cultures as well. I have a few pieces from Zambia that are in part of our collection now. We have over 600 pieces online. So next year
That's quite remarkable.
yes, and this is a collection that we've done for 22 years.
Wow.
Interestingly, I think there was one person that was actually in Nairobi who did quite a big collection, and I think the only two people that I know or have an idea about who were in the art collecting business and also possibly who are trading is Alan Donovan of Nairobi, and the second person is I think he was he was a former vice president in Kenya. I think his name was Murumbi. I think he passed on and donated all his collection to the museum, to the Kenyan Museum. There hasn't been many people who have been really venturing in the traditional tribal arts. I think possibly, I can't think about more than two people. I can't think about more than four people doing it in the whole African continent.
Yeah.
So we are quite very few, and we know each other. There's also quite happening sometimes a little bit in the back, but yes, yeah, things are happening. We hope that one day people wake up and start collecting these beautiful things that have been created over centuries.
So what is your wish, to pass this legacy on?
Well, I don't have a wish of passing any legacy because the legacy has already been imprinted in our society from a very long time.
In the arts.
In the arts already.
Yeah.
So I really have no wish. I think it's, the world will just continue evolving as it has evolved.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So running a business, dealing with tribal arts through an online platform and a
Mhm.
private gallery is quite unique.
Yeah.
So how do you balance the traditional aspect of your trade with the demands and opportunities presented by the internet?
Yes, I think that's a very good question. I don't think the internet ever presents any opportunities for the
Uh-huh.
tribal arts. I think it just gives you the visibility to the rest people of the world and people see. I have to say that even though right now I have what we call the replacement pieces. These are pieces that were possibly created in Africa in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, if at all. And so even though I'm having some material, my material is not 100 years old or extremely. Most of the pieces that were actually collected a long time ago have already been collected by museums or some other dealers in the world.
Yeah.
Already have this kind of materials, and so there's not much opportunities. I think the opportunities that actually exist is that I still have some good pieces that are actually old and they're collectible, and anybody who wants to collect is welcome.
Speaking about collecting, do you go out there and find them yourself?
I used to have a blog, my Congo visits a long time, and I kind of brought it down a long time ago. But yes, I used to go to the Congo itself and look for the pieces. I used to go to Sudan a little bit, look for the pieces. I
Yeah.
used to go to
Are there
Kenya as
pyramids?
well.
Are there pyramids there?
They're not pyramids, maybe in Sudan.
Yeah, Sudan.
Yes, I think you've just realized that actually the pyramids, the oldest pyramids in the world,
Are in Sudan.
they're actually in Sudan. They're not
Yeah.
in Egypt. Yes. So, but I was not really in the northern part of the Sudan. I was mostly, the southern part of the more authentic Sudanese. Well, not authentic. Maybe that might sound a bit crude. More in the south.
Yeah.
Much more cultural, um, diverse
Yeah.
area.
Do all these pieces tell the story the same, or they have a different twists?
I think every tribe in Africa that created something, they might have some little resemblances, but people created pieces of what they needed and functional pieces. I mean, it could come from the everyday use pieces that were being used a long time, and that would be maybe, we call them utilitarian pieces. So these are things that people created to use in the house, and that could have been possibly um, um, cups, drinking cups, plates, wooden plates. I mean, you've seen the wooden plates in Karamoja and Samburu and Rendile and the tribes of Ethiopia. So these are utilitarian pieces. Then you had the ritual pieces. The ritual pieces are huge sculptures that people created, and they kind of worshipped them as gods.
Yeah, I
A
think that's
long
what
time
people
ago.
fear.
Yes, they worshipped them as gods, and they did sacrifices and slaughtered goats and slaughtered chickens and poured blood on them, and those are much more the spiritual pieces. And
They don't sound too much different than the Bible.
yes, they're not any different than the Bible, and we shouldn't judge the pieces. It's very interesting to see spirituality exists even without the Bible.
Yeah.
So again, that's another argument. But yeah, here we are. So, and then you also have the landmark pieces, calendars, and pieces that were done for certain purposes, ritualistic pieces, and so people create. There are all different pieces that were created for different purposes. Headrests for putting the like pillows and raising your head off the snake bites and things. And you've seen the people holding the Turkana, the Boranas, they all have headrests, when they're walking around. The Guards are part of all these, they're all called utilitarian pieces. That people created all these beautiful art pieces in extremely incredible forms that they used in their everyday forms.
Yeah.
And now they're very highly collectible, valuable pieces, and not many people actually have the craft to recreate them again.
Why? But by the way, why is that? Why is that every single time we're transitioning into modern era, we always lose some form of capability, skill when it comes to art?
It's a very sad thing, because what happens is that we need to be quite acutely aware that we need to conserve everything, all the skills we had as a people.
Yeah.
And that should be one element that should be priceless for us.
Yeah.
And the more we continue just moving forward and embracing everything new and foregoing our cultures, the more we are headed for the disaster.
When you say disaster,
Well, because the identity and every creation that was being done from a very long time, our development is going to stem from that.
mm-hmm.
So one of the things why we have a lot of embracing everything new is because in the old times we had all the functions being created. We had ironsmiths, blacksmiths, medicine men, and that was going to be the moment we got. Now the Western cultures came and hampered everything else. We've not been able to move forward because now everything is just been it. We stop thinking, and we just have to receive everything that comes.
Now we're like just people waiting for AIDS.
Yes. Now people are looking at African art and looking and thinking, how was this possible that we had Africans creating headrests
Yeah.
with the same measurement from more than 100, 200, 300 years ago? It's incredible that you can have people in Borana land and you can have the Pokot and you can have the Rendiles. They are creating calabashes, and all of them were 55 centimeters high, between 55 and 62, and they never had tapes. They never had measuring tapes. But they created objects, thousands of objects with the same dimensions.
Mhm.
That is the question you can ask yourself.
And yes, if you're down there, you're watching this, you're finding it interesting, please let me know whether we should dive more into the question that he brought up, which is another story. Let us know if you're interested in learning more deeply about the spirituality that comes with art, what it was created for, and let me know deeply what question is standing out for you, because I'd like to understand so that when we bring our guests back, we might have the right questions to ask. All right. So you're saying, there was a time where these people they had the skill set. Could that mean that despite the far out land, they had a way of communication, or they could train people, the into schools or something?
That is also part of an art. I mean, the artists who were creating these people, these were artists. We had artists from a long time.
Yeah.
And you can see that our whole life existed. The whole of Africa's life was fundamentally existing on art. We've never had any race in the whole world that has more art forms than the African people.
So when we say the African people, that means the entire
The
continent.
entire continent, every tribe was creating gourds, was creating pottery. I mean, just look at pottery, for example. The pottery that was being created, from the Kikuyu, the Akamba, the Bagandas, and there's all different pottery that was being created a long time ago.
Yeah.
And this is very interesting that people have really never thought about it, is that the African potters, when they were making the pottery in the river, they never had any tape measures,
Uh-huh.
but they have created pots that were almost similar dimensions in thousands and thousands and thousands over the years.
So we're talking about people who never share the same language,
Yes.
but they're making
No,
artifacts.
they didn't share the same language. They shared possibly the same language, but they were scattered. The artists were scattered from different areas.
Uh-huh.
So it would be very interesting to see the people who are creating pots in Nyeri, for example, or we are creating the pottery in Moranga, the Kikuyus. Those potters, they almost created the same dimensions and the same heights of pots. And that was almost like a cultural significance of the Kikuyu pot or of the Kamba pot or of the whichever Griama pot or Griama post, funeral posts, or maybe Baganda pots or Ankole pots or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's very intriguing to look into that and just to see how we've lived with artists and art as Africans.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
Our
takes
whole life is art. It's be it traditional, be it visual, our whole life is art.
all right.
Yeah.
That's quite eye opening. I'll be honest.
Mhm.
Guys, I'm learning a lot of stuff. So if you're also learning, go ahead and drop a like and subscribe if you're liking it up to this point.
Yeah.
So, I have this question about the way of defense back in the day. What determined the superiority of one culture against the other in terms of how they molded their weaponry? Is that also defined as
Yeah,
art?
I think what we realize in our societies then, I think what happens is that most every society was creating something they would call the weaponry. We call them the African arms and armor.
Yeah.
And every tribe had its own creation of what was their spears, and they were very different from each other. The Kikuyu spear is very different from a Maasai spear. The Karamojong spear is very different from a Dinka spear, and the Toposa spear, and another different tribe that was creating spears for wars and things. And so they created all these shields that were made out of hippopotamus skin. And so it was an ecosystem whereby they created spears from leather skins of elephants and hippos and cows, and they created all the shields, and they had spears, and they had clubs, and all the different things as part of the weaponry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so mind opening. It's hard to think about art without thinking about war if you're thinking about the subject.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, what do you think stood out in terms of war? Is there anything sought after in terms of African, weaponry and that sort of category? Not.
No, I don't think there's anything sought out. I think people appreciate different things for different purposes.
Yeah.
And art is in the beauty. Um, um, so there's really nothing people really want to look at that is very unique. It's just got to have its own story. Some people created actually much more interesting items compared to others. So, like the Maasais, for example, they had extremely very beautiful shields that were colored and painted. Another tribe that possibly had very good shields were the Luo community.
Yeah.
They had extremely fantastic shields that are actually colored and painted. So, interestingly, when we look at contemporary art that is actually being done now, if you look at those shields that have been painted, they're almost like contemporary art, because it's very interesting. Even though we might say some people have called them primitive arts, those arts were extremely very modern.
Mhm.
That people who had no education, they created some of the biggest forms and biggest shapes of art ever to exist in the history of books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's mind opening.
Yeah.
So I even lost count where we're at right now. So I was gonna ask this, and for those who are curious, what should someone expect when visiting your private gallery by appointment?
Well, I think most people who actually come to see me, they possibly know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
So they possibly know what I have. And so by the time they do come, if they do find me on the internet, they will, I wouldn't say they are looking for any particular pieces. They definitely want to see what I have.
Yeah.
Possibly they don't like what I have. Maybe I don't have what they need. And other people, maybe I have what they need. So it's just part of the business and part of the art. It doesn't necessarily mean they don't appreciate what I have. They
Yeah.
do appreciate what I have, but maybe it's not for them. And other people appreciate what I have and they buy what I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give for aspiring collectors or dealers who share your passion?
Study as much as you can and every day, and never stop learning. So keep learning, keep doing, aspiring for the best, and interest.
If they had to work with you,
Mm.
how can they navigate the intricacies of this field, especially considering the cultural and historical significance of the artifacts you specialize in? The one for, East Africa.
Yeah, number one, we have to say that there's not much of these artifacts that are left in Africa so far.
Yeah.
So we have to be very clear about that. That in fact, um, there's not much left in the fields that is old and genuine. And so, what is mostly in the market, I think, 80% or 90% or 92.5 or 95% is mostly reproduction of things that have been done in the market. So there's a small percentage of artifacts that is still left in Africa, and some things will pop up and they were possibly created in 1940s and 50s. So there's not really that much that is left. Everything has been poached and it's in some other people's collections in the world, or there's they're in museums, or most of the pieces are not with us anymore, sadly.
Hard pill to swallow.
So it's a hard pill to swallow. So we'll be going to the museums in the next generations in Europe and North America to see our pieces of the ancestors from Africa. That's so.
Yikes. Yeah. All right. As we wrap up our conversation, is there any advice or final thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners, especially those looking to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah. Um, Very interesting. I mean, the tribal art is quite a very unique, specialized field, and people should be interested to learn it because it creates a basis of the foundation of what art is all about. But most interesting, what I would tell people to look out for is that we're gonna be getting into contemporary art next year, and that is something that is going to be our new phase. We are revisiting our old phase of 15 years ago. We are visiting our new phase now in 2024.
Nice.
So we're going to be working with a lot of young contemporary artists from across the region or across Africa. So we'll be looking for some good, talented artists. So we're going to be building a space, our own space along the highway at the airport. And we're going to be welcoming any talented artist that is doing something. So we are excited with the possibility.
Awesome. Awesome. Great to
Yeah,
hear.
yeah,
Awesome. So thank you so much, Joe Nixon,
yeah.
for sharing your incredible journey and
Thank
insights
you.
with us today.
Yeah.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining another episode of Post Lifestyle Club. Be sure to subscribe, leave your opinion in the comments, and stay tuned for more captivating conversations with industry leaders. Until next time, keep exploring, stay inspired, and never stop learning. Cheers.
Super, super.
Yep, I think that's it.
Yep. Oh, wow. Oh, that's a bit of. Has it gone? Where's it gone? Okay, good. Is it on?